Hello, and welcome to a quick bite of insight. In this turbo tutorial, we'll be talking about active and passive voice, present and future tense, accurate punctuation, and some commonly confused words. Let's start with active and passive voice. First, what's the difference? Well, in active voice, the subject of the sentence performs the action of the verb. For example, the technician tests the sample. Technician is the subject, and tests is the verb. So the subject, the technician, is doing something, testing. It's active. Now, in the passive voice, the subject is not performing the action. The action is being performed on the subject. In this sentence, the sample is tested by the technician. The subject is sample, the verb is tested. So the subject, sample, is having something done to it, tested. It's passive. Passive voice leaves the person who actually did the work as being relatively unimportant in the sentence. In fact, in the passive voice, it could be totally left out and still be a complete sentence. The sample is tested. Who tested it? Who knows? That's why in technical writing, especially when writing procedures, we almost always use the active voice. Because the passive voice can leave things ambiguous. You don't know who performed the task. This sentence from an SOP being revised was originally written, "The bottles are labeled with a lot number and date." Who labels them? Who knows? Instead, if you're giving instructions, say, label the bottle with a lot number and date. Or if you're giving information, say, QC labels the bottles with a lot number and date. Both are active voice and both avoid the problems of using the passive voice. Okay, now let's look at present and future tense. The present is happening now. The future is happening later. Sometimes, though, the people writing procedures are anticipating something being done in the future when the SOP is effective and being followed. They think, we'll do that, and then they'll do that. So they end up writing in the future tense. QC will label the samples. The manufacturing supervisor will review the record. But when the procedure is being followed, it's not happening in the future, it's happening now. So it should be written in the present tense. QC labels the samples. The manufacturing supervisor reviews the record. Let's talk about the importance of accurate punctuation. Why is it so important? Punctuation is used to bring clarity to the written word. The exact same words can be written and mean something entirely different depending on what punctuation is used. So we need to be careful with how we use punctuation. Let's look at some examples. Commas. The placement of a comma can completely change the meaning of a sentence. A humorous example is the sentence, "Let's eat Grandpa." Now, most likely this family is not going to consume the patriarch, but is actually calling him to dinner, in which case it would be written, "Let's eat, Grandpa." Seriously, though, companies have lost millions of dollars due to misplaced commas in contracts and other legal documents. Here's another example of commas changing the meaning of a sentence. The Democrats say the Republicans will lose the election. The Democrats say the Republicans will lose the election. You can't make the meaning any more different than that. Apostrophes. In these sentences, whether the host is rude or polite depends on the apostrophe. The host stood by the door and called the guests names. The host stood by the door and called the guests names. Quotations. The criminal, says the judge, should be hanged. The criminal says the judge should be hanged. other examples of punctuation changing the meaning of a sentence? I'm sorry you can't come might be said by someone leaving on a trip that wishes their friend was going along. I'm sorry you can't come might be said by a tour guide explaining that a person can't accompany the group that's about to depart. Punish him not, let him go, as opposed to punish him, not let him go. We're going to end this Turbo tutorial by looking at a few commonly confused words. Words we might use when writing the types of documents we write here at Lonza. Some of these commonly confused words include ensure, assure, and insure, imply and infer, lie and lay, it's and its, fewer and less, and then. To ensure something is to make sure it happens. To assure someone is to remove someone's doubts. To insure someone or something is to cover it with an insurance policy. Now that last use of this word is something we are unlikely to see when writing documents here at work, so let's concentrate on the other two. Ensure is a word we use often, especially when writing procedures. We give instructions to performers of a task to ensure that something was done. Ensure the material is within expiry. Ensure the valve is closed. That is the correct usage of the word. Now, assure is only used in relation to a person. You would never say assure the material is within expiry. You could, however, assure your supervisor that it was within expiry. The results of a test could assure the technician that the pH was within range. Imply and infer are verbs, both related to indirect information, but at opposite ends of the communication. The giver of information is the one who can imply. The receiver of information is the one who can infer. To imply something means to say something indirectly, to say it without actually saying it. To infer something means to conclude something based on evidence or perceived evidence. For example, the FDA inspector implied that an observation might be forthcoming. The QA manager inferred that her assurances had not satisfied the inspector. Now, to make it clear, one doesn't only infer something in response to someone implying something. Here's another example. We can infer from the data that the product did not cause the observed effects. Lay and lie. We could do an entire Turbo tutorial on lay and lie, but we'll try to explain in a single slide any confusion these words can cause. Lay is a verb that means to place or set something down. Lie is a verb that means to rest or recline in a horizontal position. An example of a sentence in the present tense using the word lay is, I laid the pipette down. In the past tense, she laid the scale on the bench. Now you'll notice that the word lay, to put or set something down, requires a direct object to make it a complete sentence. I lay the pipette down. Pipette is the direct object. She laid the scale on the bench. Scale is the direct object. Verbs that need direct objects are called transitive verbs, so lay is a transitive verb. An example of a sentence in the present tense using the word lie is, we lie down every day at 3. Past tense, yesterday we lay down at 2. You'll notice that a direct object is not needed in either sentence. The subject in these examples, we, does the lying and the laying. Verbs that do not need direct objects are called intransitive verbs. So lie is an intransitive verb. Now you might notice something else, something that is part of what can cause confusion between lay and lie. That's right, the past tense of lie is lay. Ugh. One saving grace is that in technical writing, the word we will most often use is lay, not lie. We most likely won't be lying down too much on the job. So, how can you remember to say he lays the pipette on the bench, not he lies the pipette on the bench, which would be incorrect? Well, this mnemonic device is a good one. You use lay when you place something. You use lie when you recline. It's and its. Mixing up its and its is a very common mistake. Luckily, it's very easy to check whether you are using the correct one. Its without the apostrophe is a possessive pronoun meaning belonging to it. The restaurant raised its prices. The car needs its tires changed. The prices belong to the restaurant. It's the restaurant's prices. The tires belong to the car. It's the car's tires. It's with the apostrophe is a contraction, a shortened version of it is. It's going to be a long day. It is going to be a long day. It's a long way to the hotel. It is a long way to the hotel. So it is easy to test just by substituting its with it is. The restaurant raised its prices. You'd never say that, so no apostrophe. The car needs its tires changed. Again, no apostrophe needed. Many people mix up fewer and less. It drives some of us grammar nerds crazy. These words are both used when talking about the amount of something. Which one to use depends on whether the item is all one thing or a group of things. To put it another way, less is used when the amount is measured, and fewer is used when the amount is counted. For example, there was less material in the container than we thought. There were fewer containers on the shelf than before. Another example, you would say, we need less water. You would say, we need fewer cups of water. Lose and loose. They sound so different you'd think they would rarely get confused, but surprisingly enough, they do. But the difference should be easy to remember. Lose is a verb. You lose weight, you lose your keys, you lose your mind. Oh, I didn't mean that. Loose is an adjective. The bolt was loose, your pants are loose, especially when you lose weight. Then and then are homophones, words that sound alike but have different meanings. They are among the 100 most frequently used words in the English language, so it's not surprising that they can sometimes be confused. The way to keep them straight is to focus on the basic difference. Than with an A is used when making comparisons. Smaller than, smoother than, further than. Then with an E is used when you're talking about something relating to time. Mix for 10 minutes, then check to ensure material is fully incorporated. Turn the valve and then open the vessel. Then with an E can also be used with if. For example, if you close the valve, then the material won't spill. Note that in technical writing, where we try to write concisely, we rarely use the word then with an E at all. So that's it for this Turbo tutorial on active and passive voice, present and future tense, accurate punctuation, and some commonly confused words. See the Lonza Style Guide for more information about grammar, punctuation, word use, and more, which you might find helpful when writing and revising documents. Thanks for watching. We hope you got a quick bite of insight. Look for the other Turbo tutorials to help you become a better writer.